This is the Clark Connection Podcast, your weekly dose of inspiration and power. We'll dive deep into the stories and strategies that ignite personal growth and entrepreneurial fire. Join us as we empower you to take control, level up your leadership, and build the life you deserve. Get ready to rise, to thrive, and to finally become the leader of your own destiny. Let's go. Welcome to the Clark Connection Podcast. I'm your host, Aaron Clark, aka Coach Clark. Great to have you with us. Super excited to get you on here as we go through a world where we talk about leadership, personal growth, and entrepreneurs. Excited to have you right here with me. And look, all of this is made possible. I gotta thank first my sponsors. My sponsor, Wayne with 7K Metal Associates. That if you are looking to protect your wealth, if you're looking to gain wealth, if you're looking to add to your portfolio, that through gold and through silver, hit up Wayne. All of his information is in the description below. Reach out to him. Tell him Coach Clark sent you. That you will not regret it. I also want to thank our other sponsor, Bobby, with the Comfy Quest LLC. They hit her up. She is phenomenal. The main thing that she loves to focus on is craniosacral therapy, as well as manual lymphatic drainage. But she also does focus in other modalities or massages but her specialty is the craniosacral. As somebody who uses craniosacral therapy with Bobby, go see her. I hadn't had a headache, I shouldn't have had a headache. I hadn't had a migraine in over 2 years now, and so this will help with any type of chronic pain you're having, neck, back, shoulders, whatever. Chronic pain. If you're struggling with some other illnesses, go see her, hit her up. All of that information is in the description as well. You will not regret getting in touch with Bobby. And so what we're here, trying to discover right now is, the Clark Connection Podcast. I told you, it's about leadership. It's about personal growth. It's about entrepreneurship. And so you may be saying, before we get into this, hey, Coach Clark, who are you? And I'm glad you asked. That I've been married now 17 years to my wonderful wife, Dawn. Couldn't imagine doing this without her. It has been awesome. And look, as we're talking about leadership, entrepreneurs, and business development and whatnot, I'm going to throw this in there. I do believe that the number one decision that any business person can make, any business decision you can make, is who is your partner in life. Choosing a spouse, because their support will either make or break what you are trying to do. And so been fortunate enough to have the best one for 17 years now. A huge shout out to Dawn, also a father of 2 boys, Zachary, 17 now, Levi is 13 now. Both are awesome. They're super involved. Zachary does band and golf. Levi is into motocross. And between the both of them, they keep us busy. A lot going on. I'm also a former, or as I like to say, a recovering football coach, because it never gets out of your system. Once you get into the coaching arena, you never fully get out of it. Excuse me. And so I did that for 12 years, and I learned a lot through being a coach. But I'm going to get back into later about who is Coach Clark. But let's talk more about what is the Clark Connection Podcast. And I'm going to kind of go backwards. We're going to talk about entrepreneurs, and you may be thinking, all right, well, what makes you think you know what to talk about? Well, it's been in my blood. It's been something that I've been a part of ever since I can remember. That my grandfather started Delta College in 1971. So those of y'all who are in South Louisiana, Southern Mississippi, you might be pretty familiar with it. He started it. They took it over. It was bankrupt when he got it. Did not know that it was double in debt what it was from what he purchased it. And so price he paid, that was the debt was double. And so I was able, through a lot of hard work and dedication and hours, I was able to take that business and turn it into a generational success. The second generation, third generation are now working in it, and quite possibly could be having a fourth generation starting to work in it soon. It's so cool that knowing that. But also, we used to own and operate a motorcycle dealership down in New Orleans. It's been, like I said, entrepreneurship runs in my blood. Me and my dad started a marketing business called DWC Promotions, with our big thing being the Great Southern Rally. That didn't last but about 2 years, but we learned a lot. And, that's one thing that I believe is, guys, you do one of two things. You either win or you learn. And you don't lose unless you decide not to learn. You never really fail unless you quit. There's always something to learn from. There's just learning experiences. That's it. We learn as we go through. Other things that I've done as an entrepreneur myself, I've been in marketing, started in a network marketing. I had some success with both of those. The last year that I was in network marketing, I was in the top 8% of the company. Then I started doing hot shot. A lot of good stuff came out of hot shotting. And then now I do coaching and speaking engagements, specifically talking on leadership and personal growth. I'm a certified John Maxwell trainer and speaker. If you know anything, John Maxwell is the leadership guru around the world. So if you're looking to learn anything about personal growth or leadership, start with John Maxwell. Promise you won't find anybody better. And if you need somebody to speak at an engagement, or you're just looking for extra coaching in that, hit me up. You can find all of my stuff down below in the description. I would love to get that talk with you guys more about leadership and development through the John Maxwell team. And next, it rolls right into this perfectly. The second thing I want to focus on is leadership. And leadership is nothing more than influence. At its core, leadership is influence. And, I love how John says it. If you claim to be a leader and you're out on this journey, and then you turn around and you look to see who's following me, and you see you're by yourself, you're not a leader. You're just taking a walk. Leadership is influence, the ability to help people. And we can go and we can look at a long list of leaders, and they were all able to influence people. They both good and bad. There are many good leaders. There's many bad leaders. It's all the same. That leadership is influence. And everything rises and falls on leadership. And if you don't believe me, I told you already, I'm a sports guy, love sports. Let's say your favorite team is losing, and they have a terrible season, and they go on and don't do anything successful. Do they go down to the team and fire the person who was third team and riding the bench, or do they fire the head coach? Well, they fire the head coach, of course, because leadership, that is what they either causes someone or an organization to be successful or to fail. Everything rises on or falls on leadership. So it all comes down to leadership and how we lead. It's that simple. And, like being the coach, being the teacher, I always get asked, tell me about, who was the toughest? Who was the toughest person that you ever had to lead? And still in leadership, multi-level, seeing over multiple things. Like people ask me all the time, who's the most difficult person you deal with? And I tell them, I'm honest. It's always the same answer. Everywhere I go, it's always been the same answer. And I tell them, Aaron Clark is the toughest person that Aaron Clark leads. And I say this because when I look at him in the mirror, when you look at that person in the mirror, look him right in the eyes. Get up in there and really see him. They will tell you, did I give it 100%? Did I give it my all? Did I get better? Because you do one of two things. You get better or you get worse. And that person looking back at you in the mirror knows if you got better or if you got worse. And if you stayed the same, you got worse. Because staying the same today that you were yesterday is you getting worse. And so we only do those two things. We get better or we get worse. And that person in the mirror knows whether or not you are giving it your all. So the toughest person that I lead every single day is me. The absolute hardest person to lead is me. Because it's real easy to tell somebody else to do something. It's hard to tell yourself to do something. It's hard. Like waking up, I know that exercise is good for me. It's easy for me to tell you that, but it's hard for me to go actually work out, because that requires me putting forth physical effort. And I could tell you that I worked out today, but if I didn't work out today, I know I didn't. You don't, but I do. And so I can fool you. It's easy for me to fool you and make you think I'm doing my best. But I can't fool that person that looks back at me in the mirror. He knows me. And the same is true for you. The same is true for you because you know if that person that's looking back at you in the mirror, they know if you gave it your all. And so with leadership, the hardest person to lead is you. Which brings me to the third thing that I want to talk about. This podcast is all about, we've got entrepreneurs, we've got leadership. But you may be saying, at this point, how do I become better? And I'm glad you asked. It's all about personal growth. Personal growth, personal development. It's all about it. I don't believe there is a such thing as professional development. That it's all personal growth and development that you happen to use on your job. And guys, ultimately, the better you become, the more you can give. And this is so important because you cannot give what you don't have. If you don't have it, you can't give it. And so, it was making me think, I was like, man, I remember the very first time that I was asked a question, what's your plan for personal growth? Fresh out of college, with my first coaching gig, one of my mentors said, what's your plan for personal growth? I was like, what is this guy talking about? Personal growth? Like, I'm done growing. I'm not planning on playing football again. I'm not going to work out. I'm done. What do you mean personal growth? And he said, what are you going to be reading? What are you going to be watching that makes you a better person? What is it that's going to make you better? What are you doing? And I was like, read a book. What is this guy talking about? I just graduated college and, I knew everything at that point because I got my bachelor's degree, which you all know. When you get your bachelor's degree, you know everything, right? Wrong. But I thought I knew everything. And I was like, I am not cracking open another book. And I'll tell you one thing it's a very sad statistic. It's a very sad statistic that the after high school. So we'll just take high school graduates. We'll start there. 67%. So we're talking 2/3 of high school graduates never read a book again. Think about that. 67% or 2/3 never read a book again. Never crack open a book. That's terrible. Like, your mind is so important. This up here, it's that what's going on between the ears is the most important thing. If you're not developing that, reading is to the mind like what exercise is to the body. So 2/3 of people after they graduate high school never read again. But hang on. Let's move to college, right? Because these guys got it going on. If you went and graduated from college, you got it going on, right? 48% of college graduates never read a book again. 48%. That's almost half of college graduates. And I think this statistic, I don't have it on me, is something like 25% of people that graduate high school go on to college and actually finish and graduate. So if we're putting that in there, we're talking about probably, I don't know, maybe 20% of the population actually reads a book again after high school. Man, and we wonder why we're in the state that we're in. But personal growth, that's why it's so important. And, don't give me the excuse, I got this, I got that. Reading is difficult for me. Reading is something that's a challenge and a struggle for me. But you can do it too. Because it's so important for you to get together and read, because it helps you to become a better person. And like I said earlier, you can't give what you don't have. And so if you aren't good enough to give somebody something, you can't give it to them. I mean, I'd love to be able to give every single person in the world $1 million, but I don't have $1 million to give. You can only give what you have. And so, one thing, once I finally figured out, so going back to that personal growth question, once I finally figured it out, what he was talking about, I was like, hey, I'm going to start reading books about coaches because I wanted to be a coach. And I said, let me see who's a coach that I can emulate. And the first one that I thought of that I always enjoyed watching him coach was John Gruden. And so I read John Gruden's book, How Good Do You Want to Be? That great book. It really got me thinking. And I said, man, I got to learn from another coach. I want to learn from another coach. Who else can I read about? Because that was a really good book. And I said, man, I got to learn from the best. He's the best in the industry. That Nick Saban is the top guy. I got to read. I'm going to be like Nick. Man, don't care if you love him or hate him. College football just got worse because Nick Saban is not in college football. Yeah, I'm gonna get off that soapbox now. But as I started reading the book, there was a lot of great stuff for me to learn. But it wasn't quite who I am as a person. And I kept looking at it, I kept thinking, I said, who can I emulate? Who can I be like? Who's somebody that's a very much a rah-rah, uplifting? And then it hit me. I said, man, Pete Carroll. And so I looked, and Pete had 2 books at the time. Always Compete and Win Forever. And so I said, the other one I didn't really want to look at, but I said, this Win Forever. There's something about that one. So I read Win Forever. And that book helped change my coaching philosophy. But more so importantly, it showed me another book that helped Pete to develop his coaching philosophy. And if you hadn't heard of it, it's called The Inner Game of Tennis. And I remember reading that when I read that in his book, I'm like, hold on. We're talking a tennis book in football, but it wasn't talking about tennis. Tennis was what the author Tim Galloway taught. He was a tennis coach. He was a tennis player. But what Tim had discovered was a way for you to focus, to get in the zone, and how to create that focus every time you were going to work. And it's a phenomenal series. He's got several different books called the Inner Game series. Go read them. They're phenomenal. Inner Game of Work, Inner Game of Golf, Inner Game of Tennis, Inner Game of Bowling, Inner Game of Pitching, Inner Game. I mean, it's a great series. Go read it. But after I read that, it changed how I wanted to be as a coach. And knowing how to train, to teach people to get in the zone. And I loved, as I read it, I could see how Pete had done that with his teams at USC and with his team at the Seattle Seahawks. He had helped teach his players how to get in the zone and play in the zone. Wonderful book. And, and I've got a copy of it over here. Let me grab that for y'all. Let's see. Yeah, and I mean, yeah, if you'd have asked me back then, if I'd have ever, they had all these different books on my shelves in my office at home, I'd have called you a liar saying that I would have. But this is it gone? Let me turn that off. Let's see if that helps. So here's the Inner Game of Tennis. That excellent book, guys. Go get it. Go read it. That it'll change things for you. And so you can focus on that. You can do that. You can read. If I can read, you can read. And I mean, and so now there's several books that I read. My goal is to read at least one book a month. But there's several books, I mean, it depends on what you're wanting to read, what you're into. Depends on how, and I mean good personal growth books. If you're looking for somebody that tells you more of a story with how things come along, but using the concepts, Andy Andrews is a great guy. John Gordon's another one. Excellent books. Highly recommend anything that they read. Now, if you're looking for more real life and how do I apply what I'm doing, John Maxwell, the hands down top guy. Look no further than John Maxwell. Grant Cardone, he's another great one. I love the book Relentless by Tim Grover. Excellent book on personal growth and development. One that I read every single year. It's the only one that I read with consistency outside of the Bible. Is How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. Great book. I think everybody should have to read that book. It's so good. I mean, when you look at what we do in business as entrepreneurs and anything else, that's all we're doing is how to win friends and influence people, which is leadership. How to be a leader. A great book. If you hadn't read it, go read it. They've redone it and got several different versions. Other things that you'll get to see on the show is I will have guests on that fairly regularly. I want to highlight other leaders and entrepreneurs. And mostly I want to help you get connected. It's all about creating relationships. It's all about showing you who is in your area that does business, that's in business for themselves, letting them tell you, hey, here were some of the struggles that I went through. Because when you really think about it, success is on the far side of failure. You're going to fail throughout this process. It's okay. And I'm glad that we all learned how to walk before we learned the wrong way to learn. Imagine your child, those of you that have parents, or just look at a child who's trying to learn how to walk. One couple of ladies at work, they were showing me pictures and videos of their children starting to walk. And it always reminds me, I'm so glad we didn't learn that we learned how to walk before we actually learned not to learn. Because had learn how we learn now, their kids would have fallen down and go, man, I'm such a loser. I'm a bum. I can't walk. I should be mastering this by now. But that's not what they do. They see it and they go, oops, fell down. Let me try it again. Oops, I fell down. Let me try it again. And then as parents, we do the same thing. We encourage it. We applaud them for trying. It's the same way in your own business that you are going to struggle. That it is tough. But if you stick to it, you can make that happen. And so I circle back to who is Coach Clark? I told you I'm a certified Maxwell trainer. I'm a father. I'm a husband. I'm a coach. I'm a trainer, entrepreneur. Other things that I do is I'm the lead pastor for Faith Racers Ministry here in Louisiana. So if you show up to a motocross race, there's a good chance you're going to run into me there. I absolutely love being able to share Jesus with people at the motocross track. Former high school teacher and coach. And that's going to be one that I go into lessons I learned, lessons of a coach, things that I learned coaching and how to lead, because, oh my goodness, you want to talk about some lessons to be learned? They go be a teacher or a coach. Volunteer for an organization. They go to your church, go to the local soup kitchen. They go to the YMCA and volunteer to coach and teach, and you will learn about leadership. And you will learn how quickly it is and how difficult it is to lead people. That it's an excellent time to get there. And it's really important if you're wanting to be a leader in business or to have your own business, that to learn how to lead people who don't have to follow you. Because that's a tricky thing. If you get people to follow you who don't have to follow you, and they're doing it because they genuinely like you, that's when you become a true leader. It's really easy when you're the boss and can say, you're going to do this or else. It's another reason that a completely other thing to have somebody come along with you and say, I'm going to do this because I want to help you do this. Phenomenal. They go volunteer and try to lead in those organizations. A completely different story. Other things that I put in here down is I've been a leader now since I was about 2 years old. As the oldest child, when my sister came around, that meant I had somebody that I was leading and guiding throughout that process. I had done it already. I moved it up through the leadership ranks. I was the quarterback on our middle school team, point guard, so on and so forth, all through there. In high school, I was one of the defensive captains that was helping to call the plays. We always had two guys that called plays, and I was one of those two. Moved in, played college football. Then, as a 17-year-old, but let me go back to the college football. I played that for 2 years. Those of you that do have the opportunity, if you have children, young people, I highly recommend you encourage them to play at the next level. Allow them to go as far as they can. You will not regret it. I don't regret it. My time spent in the college ranks was awesome. It helped me to become who I am today. There was a lot of struggle, but it's such a great experience for people to do that. When I was 17 years old, so going back to the story about 17, for that summer that I worked, I was the warehouse manager. So there were two people that I was in charge of. I was 17. One was like 28 and the other was like 30. To me, that was weird. But my boss, he saw something in me. That was when I knew that I had it. I didn't really know, but I always thought it was weird. I remember asking him one day, like, why wouldn't you put one of them in charge? We've all kind of been here about the same amount of time. I'm only going to be here full time until August. Why not them? And he said, I see your potential. I see what you're going to do. You've got leadership in you. It's time. And that's all it took, was having people speak into you. And I could go on forever about different things. And there's so many other topics that we're going to cover in here. And one thing I want to talk about is the 7 keys to personal growth. And I'm going to talk about mentors. I want to talk about all sorts of other things but I just don't want to keep going and going, because I could keep going forever. And so I do want to thank you for hopping on here. I'm so glad to have you join in on this journey with us. I would be missing out if I didn't take this opportunity as well to thank our sponsors. Bobby with Comfy Quest. I'm serious. Go hit her up. All of her information is below. It's in the description. They hit her up, get you a craniosacral massage, get you a manual lymphatic drainage. You will not regret it. I promise you won't regret it. Tell her Coach Clark sent you. Same thing if you're looking to create, diversify, add to your wealth through silver and gold. Call Wayne with 7K Metals. You won't regret talking to Wayne. All of his information is below as well. It's in the description. Call Wayne. Tell him I sent you. You will be very surprised with how knowledgeable he is. And you will just be amazed with all that gold and silver can do to help protect you and your family. It's never too late to get started doing that. So don't wait. Do it today. And so I look forward to seeing each and every single one of you, hearing from you. If you need anything in the time being, let's connect. Connect with me on all socials. It's at Coach_A_Clark. You can hit me up on socials. You can also go to my website, CoachAClark.com. That website is CoachAClark.com. Fill out the connection form, and somebody from my staff will get back to you ASAP. So don't wait. I'm looking forward to helping you and being on this journey with you together. I hope you are enjoying an amazing day so far and continue to enjoy an amazing day, and look forward to connecting with you further on the Clark Connection podcast. Talk to y'all soon. Thanks for listening to the Clark Connection podcast, where my goal is to add value to you. Make sure you like and follow the show. You can also connect with me via my website, CoachAClark.com, or on all socials at Coach_A_Clark. The links are in the description. Huge thanks to my sponsors, Wayne with 7K Metal Associates, Bobby at A Comfy Quest LLC, and Andrew at Automate Integrate Professional Services. We look forward to bringing you more great content. See you next week.